The air in the courtroom hangs thick, tasting of old paper and the metallic tang of fear, or maybe just the stale coffee I've been nursing for hours. He sits across the aisle, a few feet and a chasm of betrayal away. A small smile plays on his lips, confident, almost smug. He glances at me, and in his eyes I see it again, the same look he's given me for months now, maybe years, pity tinged with disdain. A look that says, "You are small. You are weak. You will leave with nothing." He leans back, whispers something to his shark of a lawyer who nods, equally confident. They look like a match set, two predators who already know the kill is certain, just waiting for the formality. I grip the worn leather of my chair, my knuckles white. My lawyer, bless her weary soul, gives me a small, tight nod. "Stay calm," it says. Almost there. But my heart is a hummingbird trapped in my chest, beating a frantic, desperate rhythm against my ribs. Everything I am, everything I thought we were, everything he systematically tried to strip away, it all funnels down to this stifling room, this moment before a stranger in a black robe decides my fate. He thinks he knows the outcome. He thinks he's won. His smile widens. "You naive fool," it screams across the silent space. "You will get nothing. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know." It started, as these things often do, like a storybook. Or, at least, like the first optimistic chapters before reality sharpens its teeth. He was charming, successful, persuasive. He spoke of building a future, a life side by side. He painted pictures with words, a home filled with light, shared dreams, a partnership. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? I poured my life into that vision. I brought my own skills, my energy, my belief. I built a career that, while maybe not as flashy as his, was stable, provided a solid second income, and gave me a sense of purpose independent of him. I managed our home, not just the cleaning and cooking, but the logistics, the planning, the foundation upon which our shared life rested. It felt like a team. It felt like ours. We bought the house, renovated it together. Or rather, I managed the renovations while juggling work and everything else, and he wrote the checks and took the credit. We built savings, invested. Every step forward felt like a joint accomplishment. He was the face of our success, the one who networked and closed deals, but I was the quiet engine, the infrastructure ensuring everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. I liked that role. I felt necessary, valued. He told me I was. He said he couldn't do it without me. He said I was his rock, his partner, in every sense. I believed that, too. The world felt safe, built on a solid foundation of mutual respect and shared goals. The first crack appeared subtly, a hairline fracture you could almost convince yourself wasn't there. He started working longer hours. Okay, normal for someone ambitious, I told myself. Then the business trips became more frequent, sometimes extending unexpectedly. His phone was suddenly private, always face down. His temper, once rare, flared unpredictably, often when I asked simple questions about his day or his work. He became dismissive. My job, my contributions, my thoughts, they were no longer met with interest but with impatience. "That's nice, dear," became a common refrain, dripping with condescension. The shared dreams he'd painted began to fade, replaced by a solitary vision he no longer bothered to share with me. His future, his success, became something separate, something he was building for himself, not us. The foundation I thought was rock solid was starting to crumble, revealing something hollow beneath. The moment everything shattered wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow, sickening implosion. It was a Tuesday evening. He was late, again. I called, no answer. Called his office, closed. A gut feeling, cold and sharp, twisted in my stomach. It wasn't just worry. It was a premonition. I logged into our joint bank account, something I rarely did, trusting him implicitly with the finances. What I saw made the blood drain from my face. Large sums moved, not for business expenses I recognized, but to accounts I didn't know existed. Shell corporations? Offshore transfers? It was confusing, but the pattern was clear. Money was disappearing from our shared life, rerouted into a hidden parallel world. My hands trembled as I dug deeper, finding cryptic emails, coded messages about assets, and minimizing exposure. And then, the final blow. An email, meant for his lawyer, detailing a strategy for divorce. A strategy based on claiming I had contributed minimally, that the bulk of the wealth was his alone, earned through his sole efforts and business acumen. He planned to leave me with what he deemed fair, a pittance relative to our actual worth, just enough to silence me, he'd written, to make the cost of fighting higher than the reward. It wasn't just about money. It was about erasing me, dismissing my years, my work, my identity as his partner. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was a complete demolition of the reality I thought we shared. He wasn't just leaving. He was planning to obliterate my existence within the life we had built together. Getting divorced felt like walking naked into a blizzard. The cold was immediate, the biting wind of reality far harsher than I'd imagined. I found a lawyer, Mary Ann, a woman with kind eyes and a backbone of steel. I showed her what I'd found. She didn't flinch, just nodded slowly, her expression hardening. "He's planning to play dirty," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "This won't be easy was an understatement. The moment he knew I was onto him, the mask dropped completely. The dismissiveness turned to open hostility. He changed the locks on the house, my own home. He froze the joint accounts, leaving me scrambling to access my own salary. He started spreading rumors among friends, painting me as greedy, unstable, the instigator of the divorce. Every interaction was a battle, every phone call a potential minefield. He reveled in making things difficult, delaying proceedings, burying us in paperwork, forcing me to spend money I barely had on legal fees. "You're wasting your time," he'd sneer over the phone, his voice dripping with false pity. "You'll get nothing. I've made sure of that." He seemed untouchable, protected by layers of legal strategy and hidden money. He claimed his business was struggling, that those large sums I saw were just temporary shifts, necessary for survival. He minimized our assets, inflated debts, created a financial picture that bore little resemblance to the reality I knew. My early attempts to counter his claims felt weak, easily dismissed by his expensive legal team. I provided documents, timelines, anecdotes of our shared life, my contributions. His lawyer would simply object, or he would flatly deny everything, his face a mask of feigned innocence or righteous indignation. The system, designed for fairness, felt clunky, slow, easily manipulated by someone with resources and no scruples. I felt like I was flailing in deep water while he stood on the shore, occasionally throwing rocks just to watch me struggle. Friends started taking sides, leaning towards his version of events, the successful businessman wronged by a demanding wife. The isolation was crushing. There were days I'd curl up on the floor of my tiny rental apartment, the weight of it all suffocating me, wondering if he was right, if I should just give up, take whatever pittance he offered, and make the pain stop. His tactics escalated, becoming bolder, more aggressive. He filed motions challenging frivolous things, simply to drain my resources and patience. He subpoenaed my friends, hoping to dig up dirt, any inconsistency he could use against me. He even tried to involve my family, sending intimidating letters. The financial strain was immense. My savings were dwindling, legal fees mounting. My job, once a source of stability, felt precarious as the stress bled into my work. I was constantly on edge, checking my phone, dreading emails from my lawyer. Every piece of mail felt like a potential blow. He seemed to delight in my visible distress. In one mediation session, he leaned across the table, his voice a low whisper meant only for me. "You look tired. Giving up yet?" My silence fueled his confidence. He truly believed he had broken me, that victory was imminent. He talked about his future plans in front of me, sketching out renovations for our house, vacations he would take, investments he would make. He spoke of the assets, our shared assets, as if they were already solely his to dispose of. It wasn't just arrogance, it was psychological warfare. He was twisting the knife, enjoying my pain, convinced I had no fight left. And for a while, he was almost right. The despair was a physical weight, heavy and constant. I ate little, slept less. The future looked like a vast, empty space I had to navigate alone, with nothing but debt and the bitter taste of betrayal. All seemed lost. But despair has a strange way of clarifying things. Lying awake one night, staring at the ceiling, the full, crushing weight of his betrayal hit me with fresh force. Not just the money, but the years, the trust, the shared history he was so carelessly discarding. He hadn't just left the marriage, he had tried to erase my existence within it. He had mocked my contributions, belittled my efforts, planned this calculated theft while looking me in the eye. And then, a different feeling stirred. Not just anger, but a cold, hard resolve. He thought I was broken? He thought I was weak. He had mistaken my pain for surrender. In his arrogance, in his absolute certainty of his victory, he had become careless. He had planned extensively to hide assets, to paint a false picture. But planners, especially arrogant ones, often leave trails. They become overconfident in their cleverness. My mind went back to the beginning, to the details he'd shared over the years, the casual mentions, the things I hadn't understood at the time. His business wasn't just the one he presented. There were other ventures, subsidiaries, partnerships he'd downplayed. I remembered the strange trips, the sudden need for cash, the lawyers in other states or countries he'd mentioned offhand. I remembered the email about minimizing exposure. It wasn't just about hiding existing assets. It was about structuring things so that future earnings, too, would be out of reach. I started thinking differently. Not like a victim trying to defend what was taken, but like a detective. My despair transformed into a quiet, burning fury, focused and sharp. He wanted a war? I would give him one. But not on his terms. I wouldn't flail. I would plan. I called Marianne the next morning. My voice was different. Steadier. Colder. We need to change tactics, I told her. He's not just hiding money. He's built a maze. We need to find the entrance, and then we need to bring the whole thing down. I told her about the details I remembered, the names, the places, the snippets of conversation. She listened, her expression shifting from weary to intrigued. You think there's more? She asked. I don't think, I said. I know. He was too proud of being clever to keep it completely to himself. He left crumbs and we started following the crumbs. It was painstaking work. Late nights poring over public records, searching online databases, tracking down old contacts, piecing together fragments of information. I used the skills from my own career, the attention to detail, the ability to synthesize complex information, skills he had dismissed as insignificant. Every small discovery felt like a victory. A shell company registered to a P.O. box. A property record listing a strange LLC. A business associate he'd mentioned once, who, with careful questioning, revealed more than he intended. It was a hidden world, carefully constructed to be invisible. But nothing is truly invisible if you know where to look. The anger fueled me, but it was the cold, strategic satisfaction of uncovering his lies, layer by layer, that kept me going. This wasn't about revenge anymore, not exactly. It was about justice. About refusing to let him rewrite our history, to erase my value. It was about proving that his arrogance, his cruelty, had a cost. I wasn't the naive fool he saw. I was the woman who had built the foundation he took for granted, and now I was using my understanding of that foundation to dismantle his carefully constructed facade. My determination solidified into something hard and unbreakable. I wouldn't just survive. I would prevail. And now we're here, back in this sterile, silent room. The air is thick with anticipation. All the documents, the evidence painstakingly gathered over months, are stacked on my lawyer's table. The proof of the maze he built, the hidden assets, the intricate web of deception designed to make me leave with nothing. He still doesn't know. He knows we fought back, that we didn't roll over. But he thinks we found scraps, minor inconsistencies. He thinks his main strategy held. He thinks he's too smart, too well protected. His lawyer finishes presenting his final arguments, rehashing the narrative of the struggling businessman and the wife who wants to bleed him dry. He sounds confident. My husband nods along, that same smug smile fixed on his face. He looks at me, and this time, there's a hint of triumph in his eyes. He's mentally spending the money he's convinced is his. Then, Marianne stands. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Her words are precise, calm, and utterly devastating. She doesn't just present the evidence. She tells a story. A story of calculated deception, of assets systematically moved and hidden, of shell companies and nominees, of a deliberate attempt to defraud me and the court. She lays out the paper trail, piece by painstaking piece, connecting the dots I had found, revealing the full scope of his hidden wealth, wealth far exceeding what he had declared. She exposes the true value of his businesses, the properties he'd squirreled away, the offshore accounts he thought were impenetrable. She shows how his own actions, his frantic attempts to hide everything, provided the very roadmap we needed to find it. His smile falters. The color drains from his face as Marian speaks, presenting evidence he clearly didn't know we had. His lawyer is whispering to him urgently, their faces grim. The smug confidence evaporates, replaced by a look of dawning horror. He tries to interrupt, but the judge silences him with a look. Then, the judge speaks. Her voice is clear, measured, devoid of emotion. She goes through the details, listing the assets, the properties, the accounts. And one by one, she awards them. To me. Not just a share. Not just a fair division. But recognizing the deliberate, fraudulent nature of his concealment, and perhaps influenced by the sheer scale of his deception and my undeniable contributions over the years, her ruling is decisive. She awards me the house. She awards me the primary business assets, the ones he said were struggling but that my evidence showed were thriving. She awards me the contents of the hidden accounts, the investments, the properties he'd tried to bury in a web of shell corporations. She methodically lists everything. The judge's words are a drumbeat of his undoing. The air is silent except for her voice. He sits stunned, his eyes wide, following the list of everything he thought was safe, everything he thought was his, being systematically given to me. He clutches the arms of his chair. His lawyer is frantically flipping through papers, disbelief etched on his face. Then, the judge gets to the summary, the final declaration. She outlines the total value of the marital estate, far higher than he had ever admitted. And she orders a distribution that reflects his misconduct, his fraudulent concealment, and my established contributions that he tried to erase. It's more than half. It's almost everything. Not out of spite, the judge clarifies, but as a direct consequence of his proven attempts to defraud, which necessitated this extensive, costly legal process to uncover the truth, and in recognition of the true nature of our partnership and contributions. The judge finishes speaking. There's a beat of silence. And then it happens. He lunges forward, halfway out of his seat, his face contorted, a raw, guttural sound tearing from his throat. It's not words, not at first. Just pure, unadulterated rage and shock. His lawyer grabs his arm, trying to pull him back. He shouts something then, incoherent, his voice cracking. No. You can't. That's impossible. She didn't. It's mine. The bailiff moves towards him. He screams again, a sound of pure, blindsided fury and disbelief. He looks at me, and the smugness is gone, replaced by naked hatred and the agony of a man who thought he held all the cards, watching the table flip, spilling his carefully hidden treasures into his opponent's lap. He screams again, a wordless bellow of defeat. It is the sound of his world collapsing. He thought I would leave with nothing. He was wrong. I was leaving with everything he valued, everything he had tried to steal, everything he thought was safely out of my reach. Everything but his socks, maybe. Walking out of that courtroom felt surreal. The heavy oak door swinging shut behind me didn't just close off the room, but years of my life. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter, cleaner. But the lightness was tinged with something complex, not pure joy, but a quiet, cold satisfaction. Vindication, yes, deep and absolute. Justice, finally served, not through cosmic karma, but through relentless effort and uncovering the truth. But there was also an emptiness, a sadness for the partnership that never truly was, for the trust that was so profoundly broken, for the years spent building a life with someone who ultimately saw me as an obstacle to be overcome, a fool to be fleeced. I didn't celebrate wildly. There was no triumphant shouting. Just a quiet drive home, the court order sitting on the passenger seat like a heavy, significant artifact. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about reclaiming my narrative, my worth, my right to the future I had helped build. It was about proving him wrong, not just to him but to myself. He thought I was weak. He thought I would break. He thought I was incapable of fighting back strategically. He underestimated me completely. His arrogance, his cruelty, his own labyrinth of lies became his prison, and I held the key. Winning everything felt less like winning a lottery and more like dismantling a bomb. The threat was neutralized, the danger passed, but the experience left scars. The trust one had so freely given was shattered, perhaps irrevocably. The view of the world as a safe place, built on honesty and mutual respect, was replaced by a sharper, more cautious perspective. You learn that some people are not who they seem and that their capacity for betrayal can be limitless. But you also learn your own strength. You learn that hitting rock bottom isn't the end, but sometimes the necessary ground to push off from. You learn that your own quiet skills, the ones others might dismiss, can be your most powerful weapons. You learn that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. He tried to leave me with nothing. He ended up giving me back myself, stronger, wiser, and unwilling to ever be underestimated again. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.